My name's Vicki Vollweiler. I'm the founder of College Financial Prep, and College Financial Prep helps parents plan on how they're going to pay for college. We help with scholarships, financial aid, student loans, and developing a financially friendly list for when the kids are going to college. Holly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Vicki. I'm Holly McClain. I am a counselor and life coach for teens and young adults. I spent in education. I was an educator and a counselor for 20 years, and I have my own practice working with teens and now helping them navigate that bumpy road to adulthood.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
So we're going to start out with the financial portion of the presentation. But again, when I say I'm hoping that it's going to be a discussion with everyone. Feel free to ask questions. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, and we're going to discuss how to save money on the cost of college. And this is going to be great. Your children are, still in high school. There are ways to save money if your child is already in college, but we're going to talk about will apply to high school families. So a bit about myself. I have my MBA from Syracuse University. I have a full ride plus stipend. They paid me to go. So yes, it can be done. And that was all merit-based aid, not need-based aid. After that, I became a life coach, a divorce coach. After some years in working in the corporate environment, what did I do? I helped negotiate economics for clients and for a lot of similar skills, looking at economics and the return on investment. Same thing that we as parents do when planning for college. A life coach and divorce coach, and I was helping parents determine the best financial route for them to go so that they'd be able to live their best lives. And then clients started to say to me, well, now how am I going to afford the cost of college? There's a huge need. So, here we are. And why college financial prep? We know the importance of saving for our future retirement, going into debt, for still having money in your bank account, but yet, as parents, we still all want the best education for our kids. So, that's why college finance. And as I mentioned earlier, services, we work with financial aid, college planning, a lot of strategic planning, instances of divorce and job loss and, medical illness and, it happens. Sometimes we're just not able to save as much as we had hoped. So, we help with all those circumstances. And of course, student loan acquisition and student loan repayment. So what are the college costs to be considered? A lot of times, room and board, but they're not thinking about all the other fees. There are always the miscellaneous fees that the colleges charge, the supplies like computers and books, fraternity and sorority costs, those are $2,000 a year. Travel expenses, depending on where the child goes to school, they may be flying to and from. I know my son does. Tutoring on campus or even tutoring before with test prep for college. You also have in high school the college application fees, the cost to set up a dorm room if they're living on campus, the kids need space, their cell phone, the cost of dorm insurance. There's even, just so you know, tuition insurance if you're concerned that your child may not want to stay. So as I always say, as Ben Franklin said, if you fail, fail. Can't stress enough, how it's important to plan ahead when it comes to planning for college. So just wanted to share with you a little bit about student loan debt statistics, why it's so important. Currently, there's $1.57 trillion in outstanding in the US. 54% of college attendees are taking on debt, including student loans. And the average amount per borrower is $37,584. But depending on the student, if to grad school, whether, grad school, medical school, law school, and whatever it is, they're taking on a lot more than that. This is just an average number, but the numbers for many do go much higher. So in order to save money, college prep uses what we call the goal system. We're generating a financially friendly college list. It's the most important, and I'm working with high school juniors now as we're going to start this plan and finding those schools and looking at the costs specific per household. What one day is different from their neighbor. October 1st is when the financial aid forms open. Then as the year goes on, we'll analyze all of the financial aid awards that the student receives. We'll look for more free money and then secure student. So what we do together, we want to consider colleges that are reach schools, target schools, safe, but also financially friendly schools. So important to have those schools on the list. Financially friendly for one family may be, not so financially friendly for another. Things are considered, income, assets, number of children in the household, et cetera. So how do we find free money? There's merit scholarship aid. So in terms of merit scholarships, most comes from the colleges themselves. And merit money is awarded for a variety of reasons. It's not just academics. It could be that you're a French horn player and that college is looking for a French horn player to join their band. They're offering a new major and your child happens to be in that major, interested in that major. They may offer a scholarship to fill their program. Or maybe they're looking to entice children from a different geographic region to come and attend their school. That's another reason that merit scholarship might be offered. And there are even more reasons than that. Now, need-based aid, to qualify, you have to complete the financial aid forms. And certainly for every school that's going to be FAFSA, which is, the federal aid form for student aid, free application for student aid. States have their own individual state financial aid form, not every state, some of them. New York. Also, some schools financial aid form called the CSS profile. And then some schools, even less, require their own specific colleges institutional financial aid form. So honors programs. I love talking about honors programs because it's such a great way to save money on the cost of college. Not just for 4.0 students or kids that get 1,600. All different level colleges offer honors programs, and they're out there. It's a great way for, not only the family to save money, but the kids normally get priority registration, increased networking opportunities, and more interaction with the faculty and staff, and they get to say that they graduated with honors on their, and just lots of benefits that could certainly open doors for the kids. Test optional colleges. So, that's a big thing, especially came around. A lot of the schools are not mandating that students take the SATs or the ACTs, but I always encourage to consider taking them because while, it's optional, a lot of the schools are still using the test. So especially if the child is a good test taker, it definitely makes sense to take the tests. At test blind schools, they won't look at the scores. So those you don't really need to consider it. Else, yeah, take it because potentially you could save money. So demonstrate the schools when you're applying. Visit the school's website, request information, follow the colleges on social media, always meet with the college admissions council to the college, get friendly with those college admissions with relevant questions, visit the college, that way, if your child develops and you want to request more money, maybe once you have that, ongoing rapport with them, the admissions counselor may be more inclined to see what they could do to help the student out and provide more free money. Need-based aid. So it comes in a variety of forms. There's the Pell Grant, which there's work-study programs, not free money because the child does need to work. It's still a good program, but it's not free money. And then there are subsidized loans. Loans are never free money, but what makes them considered need-based aid, the government does not charge interest on these loans till after the child graduates from college. For undergraduates, the FAFSA, the application form, looks at the students and the parents' income and assets. It looks at the number of people in the household. It looks at the parents' ages, in addition to a whole host of other factors. So this is important to know. It's how much in student loans can the student cover. The federal government only allows students to take out for freshmen up to $5,500 a year. If a child's going to college that costs $80,000 a year and they don't give any discounts, basically to the parents to find a way to pay the other $75,000. I just want all the parents to realize, like, the kids can't take out a full $80,000 a year. It doesn't work that way. So freshmen can take out up to $5,500 per year through the federal government. Sophomores up to $6,500, juniors and seniors $500 each year. For the kid credit history check, there's no cosigner needed, but be aware of this information when thinking about the the financial possibility, how much is affordable per year. So, as I mentioned earlier, for need-based aid, then your student will be entitled to a subsidized. Otherwise, the kids will get an unsubsidized loan. Interest will start to accrue as soon as they take the loan out freshman year. So what happens after the kids take out? Well, then the parents need to help pay for college. If they don't have enough cash on hand, the parents can take loans. It's possible for the student to take out a private student loan, someone as a cosigner. Typically it is not possible for the child to dependent on the financial aid forms. There are very, very strict rules to who actually dependent. So a lot of people think, oh, our family earns too much. What should I bother applying for financial aid? Well, there are lots of good reasons. Some schools, they want to see a foundation just to even award merit scholarship money. Not always, not every school, but yeah, sometimes it happens. If your family needs to take out student loans, even if a household earns, I'm making this up, $1 million a year, and the student wants student loans, fill out the financial aid application. Also, with work study, to apply for a work study program, it's done through the FAFSA application. And lastly, if there should be a down circumstances, I mean, heaven forbid, somebody gets run over by a bus, parents divorce, someone loses, happens. If there is this downward change, it is to the school and ask them to re-review the FAFSA application, based on these new circumstances. And yeah, it is possible to save money even that same year. So EFC, it's a term, I'm not sure if you've if you're familiar with this yet, stands for expected family. And this number is what the government feels that you can afford to pay each year for college. Okay, agree with what the government thinks. The number is always higher than parents think that they can afford, but that's what it is. And it's calculated when you complete earlier, it takes into account the income, the assets, investments, number of people in your household, current that are in college. That's going to be changing moving forward. And it'll take into account all these different factors to determine your EFC. And then the schools take the EFC and they will how much each family will owe. Why is the EFC confusing to parents? Because it's not really the amount of money that you're going to pay for college. The government comes up with this number, but it really depends on each college. So let's look at a couple of examples. So we're going to talk about School A and School B. School A will meet 100% of need. And just so you know, if you have a child that's applying to, like, say, the Ivy League colleges, Ivy League schools will meet 100% of need. So say School A, the family has an EFC $1,000 per year. Well, say the cost of $80,000 per year. So 70 minus 10 dollars that they need. And since School A meets 100% need, the school is going to cover the 60,000. So this family will only pay $10,000 to go there. But now, what if the child really wants to go to School B? Well, School B only meets 50% of need. So the family's EFC is still $10,000 a year, and the cost to attend is a year. So this family's still showing, but because this school B, doesn't meet 100% of need, they only meet half of that. The school will only contribute half of the 60,000. They'll say, fine, we'll eat 30,000. So for this student to attend that school, they're going to have to pay their $10,000 plus an additional $30,000. Family $40,000. So it's important. I can't stress it enough that, especially junior year, when considering, that we review and see what. Make sure that there are enough schools on the list that will be affordable. So what's work? It's applied for through the FAFSA. Students work on campus at a job, they receive a paycheck, and the kids basically use it for their spending money. They can put it towards tuition or something, but they don't have to. They get a check every other week, and it's up to the students to seek a position once they're on campus. Lots of good benefits for work study programs. The kids get work experience for their resume. They learn time management skills, and when the job is quiet, homework can.
Boy, you didn't put it in the refrigerator. It was sticky.
Can someone put it on mute, please? I mean, I hate to say it, in addition to homework being completed, sometimes the kids can be sitting there and watching Netflix too. A lot better than working at a job in the mall for the kids. And even if the kids don't have an official work study program, there are part-time jobs available on campus for the kids to find. So other college, we mentioned earlier the CSS profile. Some of the states have state-based financial aid forms, and also, those institutional forms. So the CSS profile, there's about 400 colleges that use it. The CSS profile is administered by the College Board, and then the AP test and the SAT tests. The CSS profile, a much deeper dive into a household's finances. It provides a more holistic view. Because they're diving deeper, they can examine more things. It doesn't necessarily hurt people. Some people it will help because they're diving so much deeper, but they do require much more information. The major differences between CSS profile and FAFSA is value of your primary residence as well as your retirement accounts. And there are other differences too, in terms of business and the values of that, as well as other things as well. But the main differences are value of home and retirement accounts.
Vicki, with the CSS profile, is that something that families can elect to participate in? Have to.
So it depends on the school if the school requires it.
She's third string.
And one of the things, Holly, because of the work we do in the divorce world, but it's possible, like when I work with clients, we'll be strategic, and depending on the makeup of the parents and the child, especially in divorce situation, I may try to purposely steer parents away from CSS profile school, know how much it's going to hurt them, and that they'll greater savings at different schools. It definitely is possible to be strategic. And if a family if a specific financial aid form is forcing a family to complete the form and submit it, I do recommend it. You're not obligated to submit your financial information if you don't want to.
Okay.
Aren't typical, but I've had some clients save hundreds of thousands of dollars. So how'd they do it? They applied to the right schools for their situation. The child also has to be accepted at schools, and then you have to choose to attend there. But yeah, it's certainly possible. I can't say it enough. It's being strategic up front, especially that junior year, early senior year before submitting. So, this is a little bit of what I was just saying: divorce, widowhood, other extenuating circumstances. The key is strategic. If you're divorced, you might want to look at colleges that won't request the other information. Important to project for each college before submitting application. Looking to receive merit scholarships, analyze academic achievements, and find the colleges that will reward your students for what they've accomplished so far. Success stories and failures, planning ahead. Well, everyone that plans ahead, even if planning ahead doesn't start till 12th grade, there are still ways to save. The problem with the failures, seriously, I've had a couple of people call me to drop their child off at college. We've just received you to help us reduce the cost now. At that point, it's so hard, planning ahead. I can't stress it enough. So I want to thank everyone, and here's my contact information. College, again, see it at the end. I'm going to stop sharing this, and if anybody has any questions, feel free. Whether now or later.
Vicki, before, are you able on your end to mute the room? I think that might be under the participants button at the bottom. Oh, you might have done it. Perfect. A little bit of background noise there. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that to our attention.
Okay. And Holly, why don't you
Yes. Okay, let me share my screen and we will dive into the emotional side of things here. It's a lot. It's a lot planning for college and managing all moment here while I get us set up. Almost there. Okay, how does that look on your end, Vicki?
perfect.
Okay, excellent. of Holly McClain Coaching. I'm a counselor and life coach for teens and young adults. So, I support teens with counseling sessions, and I also incorporate parent sessions into the mix as well. I'm excited to be here and excited to share with you. Let me get us right into our slides here. My system's a little slow. We've had some big wins today. So, preparing your teen for a smooth transition to college. Touch upon 3 areas here. One is creating boundaries around the college process. As Vicki shared insight into just the financial side, there are pieces to the puzzle. Creating some boundaries around this process is very helpful. This is like a part-time job for parents and for teens. Honoring boundaries is highly important in this process. Also, I want to talk a little bit about establishing some open communication. I'm sure you've been trying and working with your teen in keeping the communication as open as possible. They're at an interesting stage of life right now. So keeping lines of communication open can be challenging. Right there for you that will help, especially as they transition off college, because we want to keep those lines of communication open and keep them communicating from afar as well. And then finally, this is my favorite part, helping them tune in to who they are and plant these seeds now, because as they transition to college, having that insight and knowing how they can turn inward to support themselves is a great tool for them to have. Okay, starting with some boundaries around this college process. What happens for teens often is they are managing a couple different things at once. They are having the high school experience, managing their coursework, getting themselves prepared to apply, working on that college resume, and on top of that, to complete the tasks for this college application or applying for financial aid, et cetera, and all the things that they need to do. So that can be incredibly overwhelming. Making sure that they are having downtime is really important. And I think sometimes we forget with all the things on the to-do list, making sure that they have space and room to breathe, something fun with friends, decompress. So watching them to be sure that they have a balance going. And of course, as parents, for you as well, as you're navigating the college process, your lives, and the life of your teen. Creating a schedule and expectations around the process. That actually ties in with balancing time. I've got a great tip that I picked up when I was counseling a while ago, and that is needed time when you and your teen are going to talk about this is going, because you can only imagine when it's on their mind all of the time and it's on your mind all of the time. We tend to ask, get them, if they're sitting in the car or if we're at the dinner table, how's the college process going? How's the application going? Have you worked on your setting a designated time? And maybe that's Thursdays after dinner if the family happens to be together, and use what's going on in the process, because the want is this busy, crazy process of college applications and all the things to start chipping away at the relationship parents and teen. And then specifically for the parents, I saw doing counseling at the high school setting, I would have parents, moms and dads come in and say, I need to talk to you. I was with some friends and they said this about this particular college, and their daughter is doing this and their son is doing this. And there's just a lot of outside noise around should be doing, what schools are better, and all of the things. And I really important to gravitate that you rely on and running with their information and what they're sharing with you. So maybe you want to start with your counselor at the high school level and have that be your go-to person who's sharing process and information with you around this journey to college. That way you out of the outside noise, maybe picking a couple of experts that you trust and following their protocols. It's difficult, important to quiet the noise and all of the opinions and thoughts that tend to come from the outside, because there's so much information out there and so many different angles in the process as well. So creating boundaries around the college process is something that I highly recommend. Establishing open communication with your teen. Listen, listen, and listen some more. And sometimes that's challenging when they don't want to talk or share, but when you get those moments where they're just little chatterboxes and they want to tell you about this or that, giving them your undivided attention goes miles and miles. And it's funny, we find that oftentimes they tend to talk when doing something. So if they're with me, sometimes if they're drawing or they're being creative, all that opens up the floodgates and they just want to share. Or if they're riding in the car with you, you might find this open opportunity to start talking. So setting that stage even more so before they travel and head off to college, so that they are connected and feel like they can come to you as a sounding board. Now, the tricky part can be oftentimes we have so much to share with them in return. We want to solve their problems. We've got ideas, and they just want to vent out, to share, and they don't want any advice from us whatsoever. So oftentimes I'll set the stage and I'll say, okay, do you want me to just, or can I throw out some suggestions or some advice for you? Should we problem solve together and let the way? Inquiring without probing, that kind of goes without saying. Doing your best to ask, inquire without the 20 questions fired off in a row. Sometimes that can shut them down, as you know. So just a little reminder there. Item on this list here is something that I actually picked up more recently, but I think this would be excellent path to adulthood. When they come to us with a dilemma, or what should I do, or I'm not sure how to handle this situation, whether it's something with their social group, or it is relating to college or the process, I always position, take a stab at it first. We may answer, you may not know what to do, but opportunity to take a stab and have them maybe a half plan or some direction that they would take. Then we can go out and pull in and get our advice, or pull our friends and family and find out what they think we should do and put all the pieces together. And essentially what you're doing is you're inward and make the choices for them. And then they can go and pull additional information and change their mind or tweak the process or the direction that they were planning on going. Help them tune in to who they are, especially once they leave the nest. Them to be as tuned in to who they are as possible, so that when they get there, they deeper place. There are 3 types of children, and you may have heard this before. We speak about this often in education, the 3 types of children. We have our dandelions, our tulips, and our orchids. And as are very hardy, they kind of pop up everywhere in the garden. So they are technically our weeds, our flowery weeds. You can put them in many different situations. They will handle it. They're pretty hardy. Our tulips are in the middle, and then we have our orchids, which is actually about 20% of the population. And these are our teens, or human beings for that matter, sensitive, a little more delicate, back to the energies of the world and that noise that I've talked about and all the things that are going around them. They tend to react and take in all of that information. With orchids, if you want to keep an orchid alive, we put cube at the base of the stem and we let it melt into the soil. So orchids need to be aware. They are often feelers. And as our feelers, tune into different things that are going to support them along the way. So I share with the students that I work with and the teens that I'm working with as well, this concept of dandelions and orchids so that they know how to take care of themselves, which leads me into introverts and extroverts. Some people believe that introversion has to do with not being social and being super shy, and extroverts are just the outgoing people. And actually, introversion and extroversion is really about how we recharge. How do we reset and refuel our energy so that we can keep going? Introverts and extroverts are both equally as social. They can be. But when we're talking about, are you an introvert or an extrovert, it's how do you batteries. So introverts, I refuse, and this, I stole this from someone else, this is not mine, but introverts are like cell phones. They need to go back to the charger at the end of the day and refuel themselves so that they can full energy the following day. Extroverts, on the other hand, they are like solar panels. When they're out in the world, they are connecting with others. That is refueling their energy as they go and as they move along. So introverts and extroverts, phones and solar panels, a great way to explain to your teen. Anxious teens, I want to touch on this. We live in a world that creates a lot of anxiety for us human beings, and everybody has a certain capacity in terms of what they can handle. Work that I do involves the capacity of supporting teens with the anxiousness. We all have a certain level of anxiousness. When it becomes overwhelming, that's when we need to make either lifestyle adjustments or we need to tune in just about and work specifically on that particular thing. Anxiety comes from our thoughts. So we do a lot of thought work. And for our teenagers to know that those anxious feelings that they're feeling in their body are also thoughts sometimes can help quite a bit. The teen lives in possibility. What is possible, which is great. All of the possibilities in this wonderful world to us. But when we're anxious and when we are scared, possible things that could happen tend to overwhelm us. It's not as helpful. So the teen brain, and often the anxious brain, whether you're a teen or an adult, in possibility. What's possible? All of these wild and possible, and they all could happen. And so they all end up getting equal weight. Where we to live is in probability, and the calm adult brain typically lives in probability. What's probable? Is that wild and crazy possibility going to affect me? No, because it's really not probable. So explaining the probability possibility can decrease that anxiousness within our teens as well. And remember, they have a lot of exterior noise coming at them. So not only do they have the information, social media, other teenagers, directives and direction from other adults, quieting the noise and helping them get to a calm, tune into who they are within themselves and make some decisions from that place can be incredibly helpful. And then my last, providing choices and options. So anytime you can provide them with a choice or an option, whether it's making a decision of where they want to go, or if it's a family trip, having them weigh in and buy in with a consequence if something has gone south and there's a consequence out, giving them options and choices really helps them tune into their agency from there. So again, we're getting them to tune into who they are so that when they get off to college, especially, they can tap in and then my last slide here is a list of the common stressors for college students. It's that I shared with you and the ways that you can set them up to be more tuned in and tapped in can greatly help with these stressors. Head off to college, we oftentimes forget that they will be experiencing that can be stressors. So everything from being away from home, being in another area, maybe it's something which seems as simple as eating different in a different state, possibly the academic demands, them getting to a place where they're wondering, do I really belong here? And a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes. That need for them to self-advocate because they are more independent. So all of these little layers can add up, keeping those lines of communication open so that and call for advice and suggestion, incredibly helpful. And then of course, these days, and they have a lot of supports on campus as campus counselors. Some schools have that can support them from that angle as well.
Some
and
schools have therapy dogs.
What was that, Vicki?
Some schools dogs.
You know what? I have heard that they do. They will bring in sometimes during because it is shown that petting the animals stress level. I have heard that. And also too, I was pleasantly surprised about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to walk many and they do allow therapy animals that you can bring with you from home. So if you're a support animal, they can be allowed to bring those to campus and the dorm rooms as well, which is don't know exactly how they manage that but yeah, they're very open and understanding that we are all coming from a different. That is my presentation for tonight. And then the final slide here is Vicki and I's contact information. So please feel free to reach out. I support families one-on-one and their teens. So if you are interested in that, you can reach out to me. Every family situation is different, so I would love to have a conversation with you. You also have my emails up along your journey. Please feel free to connect with me.
And before we go, does anybody have to, provide any answers that we can right now?
It's quiet out.
Okay. Holly and I both want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Oh, there is a question, I think.
Oh, did we have one? Tracy says thank you.
Thank you for attending. Thank you for coming.
Oh, and Mark just shared with us that the college worked at Mark hosted therapy dogs in the library regularly. I love that. I love that. And sometimes home. So that's a nice way to read too.
For the New York State schools, like SUNY's,
Right.
does anybody know anything about the Excelsior program?
Yes, I'm in New York too.
Oh, do you how does that work?
In general, if a household earns less than $125,000, and the student is attending a SUNY or CUNY school, the student should qualify. There's a contract that has to be signed. There are some, you can't fail a semester. You off, you have to graduate within 4 years.
Right.
You know,
there's
there are a bunch of rules to follow. And if the student receives Excelsior 4 years, you're also committing, the student is working within New York State for 4 years.
Okay.
So, you know, otherwise it becomes, if it's still accurate, a 0% interest loan. But yeah, it's a wonderful program if the household qualifies.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, well, thank you everyone for, feel free to, you know, always reach out, you know, to both myself and to Holly. We'll send everyone a copy of the recording, those that attended tonight, as well as, you know, those that weren't able to attend. So, feel free to be in touch if you have any questions moving forward.